The morning frost crunched under my boots as I made my early December rounds on Harvest Creek Farm. At 5 acres, it was tiny compared to the industrial operations that dominated our region, but every inch was precious to me. The greenhouse gleamed with winter vegetables, while heritage apple trees stood like silent guardians along the northern border. My phone buzzed, another message from Emma, my ever-successful sister. Don't forget Christmas dinner at Mom and Dad's. And please wear something presentable this year. No mud-covered boots. I tucked the phone away, focusing instead on checking the soil sensors I'd installed last spring. The data they provided had revolutionized our water usage, cutting consumption by 40% while increasing yields. Not that my family would understand or care about such innovations. The sound of tires on gravel caught my attention. My wife Kate's Subaru pulled up, returning from her farmer's market run. "Jack," she called out, her face glowing. "We sold everything. And 3 more restaurants want to contract with us for winter produce." I helped her unload the empty crates, each one representing another small victory for our sustainable farming methods. "How much did we make?" "Almost 2,000 for the morning," she grinned. "Those heirloom tomatoes from the greenhouse are worth their weight in gold." $2,000 might seem small to my sister, who made that much in an hour at her investment firm, but for us it was proof that our methods worked. We were profitable, sustainable, and growing. Everything a farm should be. Emma texted about Christmas dinner, I said, following Kate into our modest farmhouse kitchen. The space was warm with the scent of fresh bread and herbs drying from the ceiling rafters. Kate's expression tightened. "Are we going this year?" After what happened last Christmas. Last year's disaster was still fresh in my mind. Emma had spent the entire evening mocking our hobby farm while praising her husband Charles's latest real estate development, a massive complex that had paved over 300 acres of prime farmland. "We have to go," I sighed. "Dad's health isn't great, and Mom, well, you know how she gets about family gatherings." Kate nodded, understanding as always. "At least this year we have proof that our methods work." "The Department of Agriculture study, let's keep that quiet for now." I winked. Timing is everything. The next 2 weeks flew by in a blur of winter farm maintenance and holiday preparations. Our greenhouse produced a steady stream of income through direct sales and restaurant contracts, while our stored apple harvest continued to fetch premium prices at specialty markets. Christmas Eve arrived with a light dusting of snow. Kate and I loaded our farm fresh contributions into the car: roasted root vegetables, fresh bread made with heritage wheat we'd grown ourselves, and a selection of our award-winning preserves. The drive to my parents' suburban mansion felt like traveling between worlds. We passed countless cookie-cutter developments, each one representing more farmland lost to urban sprawl. Charles's latest project loomed on the horizon, a monstrosity of steel and glass that had once been the Johnson family dairy farm. "Ready?" Kate squeezed my hand as we pulled into the circular driveway. "As I'll ever be." Emma's Mercedes and Charles's Range Rover already dominated the parking area. Through the windows, I could see elaborate decorations and catering staff setting up what was undoubtedly an overpriced meal. Mom answered the door in designer holiday wear. "Jack, Kate, oh, you brought food from the farm. How quaint. The caterers have everything handled, but we can put this in the kitchen." The dismissal in her tone was clear, but I'd grown immune to it. We followed her into the house, where Emma and Charles held court in the living room. "Little brother," Emma's voice carried that familiar condescending note. "Still playing farmer, I see," Charles chuckled. "You know that land of yours would be perfect for our new development project. 5 acres could fit at least 10 luxury homes. I could make you a very generous offer." "Not interested," I said firmly, setting down our food contributions. "Where's Dad?" "In his study," Mom sighed. "The doctors say he needs to rest more, but you know your father, always working." I found Dad at his desk, surrounded by papers and looking more tired than I'd ever seen him. "Jack," he smiled weakly. "How's the farm?" Something in his voice made me pause. For the first time I heard genuine interest rather than resignation. "It's good, Dad, really good. Want to hear about it?" He nodded, gesturing to a chair. For the next 20 minutes, I explained our sustainable methods, the innovative technology we'd implemented, and the growing demand for our produce. He listened intently, occasionally asking surprisingly detailed questions. "You know," he said finally, "your grandfather would have loved what you're doing." Before he sold the family farm to start his real estate business, he always said his happiest days were working the land. I didn't know that, I said softly. You never talk about when our family were farmers. Emma takes after me, always chasing the next big deal. But you take after him. He had that same look in his eyes when he talked about growing things. The moment was interrupted by Mom calling us to dinner. The dining room table groaned under an excessive display of catered food, with our farm-fresh contributions relegated to a side table. At least try to sell the farm before you completely ruin the family name, Emma was saying as we walked in. Charles's development would be perfect there. The family name. I caught Kate's eye, noting her slight nod. Interesting you should mention that. Dad, could you turn on the TV? There's something I think everyone should see. We don't watch television during dinner. Mom protested, but Dad was already reaching for the remote. The National Agriculture Report appeared on the massive screen, the anchor's voice filling the room. In a groundbreaking study released today, the Department of Agriculture has identified several small-scale farms that are revolutionizing sustainable agriculture. Leading the way is Harvest Creek Farm, whose innovative methods have produced yields rivaling industrial operations while using a fraction of the resources. The room fell silent as footage of our farm played across the screen. The cameras captured our greenhouse technology, our water management systems, and interviews with prominent chefs who used our produce. Harvest Creek's methods, the reporter continued, are being studied as a potential model for the future of American farming. Their success challenges the assumption that only large-scale industrial operations can be profitable in today's market. Emma's face had gone pale. Charles stopped mid-chew, his fork suspended in air. That's not all, I said quietly. Dad, remember how you always said innovation was the key to success? Well, I pulled out my tablet, displaying a series of patents. Those soil sensors we developed, they're being licensed by major agricultural companies. Last week's deals alone were worth more than Charles's entire development project. But it's just a small farm. Emma sputtered. No. Kate spoke up. It's the future of farming. While you were building over farmland, we were finding ways to make each acre count. Those luxury homes you build, the people living in them still need to eat. Someone has to figure out how to feed a growing population with disappearing farmland. Dad leaned forward, suddenly energized. The patents, you're scaling this technology. I nodded. We're partnering with universities and research institutions. Our methods are being implemented across the country. It turns out 5 acres is plenty of space to change the world. That's why you wouldn't sell. Charles muttered. You knew. I knew that what we were doing mattered. I corrected him. The money is just a bonus. Though I have to admit, it's nice to know that our embarrassing little farm is now worth more than your entire development portfolio. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a napkin. All this time we thought. You thought I was failing because I chose a different path, I finished. But success doesn't always look like corner offices and luxury cars. Sometimes it looks like dirt under your fingernails and vegetables growing in winter. The Christmas dinner atmosphere shifted dramatically after the broadcast. Emma's usual sharp comments dissolved into uncomfortable silence, while Charles repeatedly checked his phone, no doubt researching our patents and agricultural innovations. So, Dad cleared his throat. Tell me more about these soil sensors. How exactly do they work? Before I could answer, Kate pulled up our farm's live monitoring system on her tablet. See these readings, we can track moisture levels, nutrient content, and microbial activity in real time. It's like having a constant health monitor for the soil. Mom peered at the screen, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her wine glass. And people pay for this. Major agricultural companies are licensing our technology. I explained. But more importantly, small farmers can afford our basic systems. We price them intentionally low for family farms. Low pricing, Emma scoffed, finding her voice. That's terrible business strategy. Actually, Charles interrupted, still staring at his phone. Their company valuation just hit 8 figures. The sustainability angle is attracting major investors. He looked up at me. Why didn't you tell us you were meeting with Goldman Sachs? I helped myself to some of our roasted heritage carrots, the ones Mom had relegated to the side table. Because we weren't building this for investors. We were building it for farmers. But the potential profits, Charles started, are being reinvested in research and development. Kate finished. We're working with 3 universities on drought-resistant farming techniques. The goal isn't to get rich, it's to revolutionize small-scale agriculture. Dad stood up suddenly. Come with me, Jack. I want to show you something. He led me to his study, pulling out an old leather portfolio from his safe. Inside were yellowed photographs and documents. This was your grandfather's farm, he said, spreading out the photos. 40 acres of the most beautiful land you'd ever seen. I was ashamed when he sold it to start the real estate business. Thought he was giving up on our heritage. The photos showed a thriving family farm, with fields of wheat and vegetables, and a much younger version of my grandfather standing proudly by his crops. He sold the farm because everyone told him it was the smart thing to do. Dad continued. Progress they called it. But I remember the look in his eyes the day we moved out. He never quite got it back. I studied the images, recognizing some of the techniques we were now using at Harvest Creek. Why didn't you ever tell me about this? Because I bought into the idea that bigger was better, pushed Emma into finance, encouraged Charles's development projects. He sighed heavily. But watching that broadcast tonight, seeing what you've built, you're honoring our real family legacy more than any of us. A knock at the study door interrupted us. Emma stood there, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. The investors who backed Charles's new development, she said quietly. They're asking questions about environmental impact and sustainable infrastructure. Apparently your farm's success is making waves in unexpected places. Sustainable development is the future, Emma, I replied. Maybe it's time for a new approach to progress. Back in the dining room, Kate was deep in conversation with Mom about our farm-to-table restaurant partnerships. You mean Le Jardin uses your vegetables exclusively? Mom's eyes widened. I had to wait 3 months for a reservation there. Their chef says our heirloom tomatoes changed their entire menu. Kate smiled. We're working with them to design crops specifically for their needs. Charles cleared his throat. About that new development project, would you consider consulting with us? Maybe incorporate some of your agricultural technology into the design. I shared a look with Kate. You mean like rooftop gardens, community farming spaces? The market for eco-friendly luxury homes is exploding, he admitted. Your expertise could be valuable. On one condition, I said firmly. The Johnson Dairy farmland, at least part of it needs to be preserved for agricultural use. We can show you how to integrate working farmland into your development. The rest of the evening unfolded with a new energy. Dad kept pulling out more old farming photographs, while Mom actually tried our preserved vegetables, admitting they were quite exceptional. Emma cornered Kate to discuss potential investment opportunities in agricultural technology. As we prepared to leave, Mom pulled me aside. I was wrong, she said simply. About the farm, about your choices. I wanted you to have an easier life than your grandfather. I don't want an easier life, Mom. I want a meaningful one. The drive home was quiet, both Kate and I processing the evening's event. As we turned onto the dirt road leading to our farm, the greenhouse lights glowed softly in the distance. Our own kind of Christmas display. They'll try to commercialize it, Kate said finally. Emma and Charles, they'll want to turn our methods into another big business opportunity. Probably, I agreed. But they can't replicate what makes Harvest Creek special. The patents are just tools. The real innovation is in understanding that farming isn't just about production. It's about connection. To the land, to the community, to our food. We parked beside the greenhouse, and I took a moment to check the evening readings on our sensors. Everything was operating perfectly, maintaining the delicate balance that allowed us to grow summer vegetables in the depths of winter. Should we tell them about the State Agricultural Board appointment? Kate asked, referring to the letter we'd received last week. Let's save something for next Christmas. I smiled. Besides, tomorrow we need to focus on the winter farmers market and the restaurant deliveries. Inside our farmhouse, the Christmas tree was decorated with ornaments made from dried flowers and herbs from our fields. Under it sat a small box from the patent office, confirmation of our latest innovation in water conservation technology. You know, Kate said, settling onto our worn but comfortable couch. Your sister was right about one thing. The farm was embarrassing to the family name, the name they thought they were building. But it turns out we were building something better. I pulled her close, thinking about my grandfather's farm photos and the legacy we were creating. We're not just growing food, I said. We're growing hope. Outside, a light snow began to fall on our 5 acres of revolution, covering the ground that had taught us the most valuable lesson of all. True success grows from the roots up, nourished by passion, innovation, and the courage to take a different path. The months following that transformative Christmas dinner brought changes none of us could have predicted. By early spring, Harvest Creek Farm had become a case study in agricultural innovation, with visitors from around the country coming to learn our methods. One crisp March morning, I found myself leading an unusual tour group: Emma, Charles, and 3 international investors, all dressed in expensive suits that looked comically out of place among our vegetable rows. The sensor network communicates with our central database, I explained, showing them the real-time soil monitoring system. Each plant gets exactly what it needs when it needs it. Emma, who had traded her heels for borrowed rubber boots, studied the tablet display. And this reduces water usage by how much? 40% on average, up to 60% in some areas. I pulled up a carrot, displaying its perfect form, while increasing yield by 30%. Remarkable, one of the investors murmured. And all this on just 5 acres. Charles was unusually quiet, taking photos and making notes. Since Christmas, his development company had been under pressure from investors concerned about environmental impact. The Johnson Farm Estates project had been temporarily halted. Jack, he said finally, I've been thinking about your condition, about preserving part of the Johnson farm for agricultural use. What if we did more than that? I brushed soil from my hands, waiting. What if we redesigned the entire project? Instead of just luxury homes, we create an agricultural community. Each home gets a small growing space using your technology. The center would be a working farm, like this one, providing fresh produce to residents. Emma jumped in, her business mind clearly racing. We could call it Heritage Agricultural Estates. Combine luxury living with sustainable farming. The market potential. Stop, I interrupted. This isn't about market potential, this is about doing something right. If we do this, it has to be real, not just a marketing gimmick. The investors exchanged glances. Mr. Harrison, one said, what would you need to make it real? By lunchtime we were gathered around our farmhouse kitchen table, where Kate had laid out a spread of farm-fresh food. The investors' skepticism about farm food vanished as they tasted our heritage tomato soup and fresh-baked bread. We need 3 things, I said, outlining our conditions. First, 50% of the Johnson land stays as working farmland, using our sustainable methods. Second, we train local farmers to run it. No corporate management. Third, we set up an educational center to teach these methods to others. Charles started to protest, but Emma held up her hand. The profit margins will be better than you think, Kate interrupted, bringing up our farm's financial data. Our revenue per acre is 6 times higher than conventional farming. Plus the homes will sell at a premium because of the agricultural amenities. The discussion continued through the afternoon. By the time the investors left, we had the framework of an agreement that could change not just the Johnson farm, but how we think about development itself. That evening, Dad showed up unexpectedly at the farm. I heard about the meeting, he said, walking with me through the greenhouse. Charles called me. The tomato vines around us were heavy with fruit, defying the cold weather outside. Dad reached out to touch one gently. You know, I've been going through old papers, he continued. Found something interesting. Your grandfather didn't sell the farm just to start real estate. He was forced to sell because the bank wouldn't loan him money to upgrade his equipment. They said small farms weren't viable. I thought about our sensor network, our precision farming techniques. Times have changed, thanks to people like you. He turned to face me. The board of Harrison Development is meeting next week. We're voting on the new direction for the company. I want you there. Dad, I'm not interested in real estate. No, he cut me off. We're interested in your vision. The company's shifting focus to sustainable development, agricultural communities, like what you discussed today. We need someone who understands both the land and the future. Before I could respond, Kate called us in. The evening news was running another story about Harvest Creek Farm, but this time it wasn't just about our technology. The success of Harvest Creek Farm has sparked a movement, the reporter announced. Small farms across the country are adopting their methods, proving that sustainable small-scale agriculture can be both profitable and environmentally responsible. The camera panned to show a farmer's market where several vendors displayed "Grown with Harvest Creek Methods" signs. Remember when Emma said the farm was embarrassing? Kate smiled. Now everyone wants to copy it. Dad watched the broadcast thoughtfully. You know what the best part is? Your grandfather would have loved this. He always said farming was about feeding both the body and the soul. The next morning, I had another surprise visitor. Emma, dressed in casual clothes for once, arrived just as we were starting our daily harvest. "Show me," she said simply. "Show me everything. I need to understand." For the next few hours, I taught my sister about soil health, water conservation, and the delicate balance of sustainable farming. To my surprise, she was a quick learner, asking insightful questions and taking detailed notes. "This isn't just about food, is it?" she asked as we checked the sensor readings. "It's about connection. To the land, to what we eat, to each other. Finally figured that out, did you?" She smiled ruefully. "I spent so many years chasing bigger deals, more money. But watching you build this, seeing the impact it's having, maybe it's time for a different kind of investment." By summer the changes were in full swing. The Johnson Farm project had been completely redesigned, with Harvest Creek Farm serving as both model and mentor. Emma had launched a new division of her investment firm focused on sustainable agriculture technology. Even Mom had started a small garden using our methods. But the real victory came in the form of a letter from the State Agricultural Board. They were adopting our water conservation system as the new standard for all farms in the region. Small-scale farming was no longer being dismissed as inefficient or outdated. Standing in our fields one evening, watching the sunset paint the greenhouse gold, I thought about how far we'd come from that tense Christmas dinner. The farm that had once embarrassed my family had become its new source of pride. Kate joined me, carrying our latest soil analysis results. "The university wants to expand the research program," she said. "They're calling it the Harvest Creek Model." I looked out over our 5 acres. Small by traditional standards, but massive in impact. You know what's funny? Everyone thought we were thinking too small. Turns out we were thinking bigger than anyone imagined. The evening light caught the new sign at our farm entrance. "Harvest Creek Farm growing tomorrow's solutions today." Below it a smaller sign announced, "Educational tours welcome." In the distance the foundation was being laid for the first Harvest Creek-inspired agricultural community. It wasn't just about saving one farm anymore. It was about reimagining what farming could be. 1 year after that life-changing Christmas dinner, Harvest Creek Farm hosted its first annual Sustainable Agriculture Summit. The same dining room that once echoed with Emma's criticisms now held farmers, developers, and investors from across the country, all eager to learn about our methods. I stood at the makeshift podium, actually a repurposed apple crate, addressing the crowd gathered in our converted barn. "A year ago someone told me this farm was an embarrassment." I began catching Emma's eye as she sat between Mom and Dad. "Today we're not just growing food, we're growing a movement." The presentation screen behind me showed the results. 50 new small farms using our methods, water usage down by millions of gallons across the region, and crop yields that defied traditional agricultural wisdom. Charles stood up to present next, showing plans for what was now called the Johnson Agricultural Community. The development had become a model for sustainable living, with every home incorporating growing spaces and shared farming areas. "We've sold out Phase 1, he announced proudly. "There's a 2-year waiting list for Phase 2. Turns out people don't just want luxury homes. They want connection to their food and community. Emma's investment fund, focusing on sustainable agriculture, had outperformed all expectations. But more importantly, she'd found her own connection to the land, maintaining a thriving garden plot in the community center she'd once mocked. During the lunch break, featuring entirely Harvest Creek-grown produce, Dad pulled me aside. "Your grandfather's farm," he said, eyes twinkling. "I bought it back. The family that owned it was looking to sell. It's yours if you want it, to expand your educational programs." I stared at him, speechless. The Harrison Development Board voted unanimously. He continued, We're converting all our future projects to follow the Harvest Creek model. Turns out my son knew what he was doing all along. Mom joined us, wearing a Harvest Creek farm apron and carrying a tray of our famous tomatoes. She'd become an unexpected ambassador for home growing, hosting weekly gardening clubs for her former country club friends. Who would have thought, she mused, that our family's legacy would come full circle, from farmers to developers and back to farming, just in a completely new way. Kate took the stage in the afternoon, presenting our latest innovation, an AI-driven crop management system that made our methods even more accessible to small farmers. The patent profits were being channeled into a foundation to help family farms transition to sustainable methods. As the sun set on the summit, our guests gathered in the fields for a farm-to-table dinner. String lights twinkled between the apple trees, and the greenhouse glowed softly in the background. Emma clinked her glass for attention. A year ago, I sat at a Christmas dinner and called this place embarrassing, she admitted. I was wrong. My brother and sister-in-law didn't just build a farm, they built a blueprint for the future. To Harvest Creek Farm. The toast echoed across the fields as I held Kate close, watching our dream ripple out into the world. The 5 acres that had once seemed so small now felt like the perfect size to start a revolution. Later that night, after the guests had gone, I walked the quiet fields with Kate. The soil sensors blinked softly, monitoring the land that had taught us so much. You know what this means? She asked, pointing to the new sign we'd unveiled that day. Harvest Creek Institute of Sustainable Agriculture. That we have even more work to do. That we proved them all wrong. Small doesn't mean insignificant. Sometimes the biggest changes start in the smallest places. In the distance, the lights of the Johnson agricultural community twinkled, while closer by, our greenhouse continued its quiet work of growing food against the seasons. Tomorrow would bring more tours, more classes, more farmers looking to learn our methods. But tonight, standing in the fields where it all began, I thought about how personal success stories sometimes grow into something much bigger. Our little farm hadn't just redeemed itself in my family's eyes, it had helped redefine what farming could be in the modern world. The evening breeze carried the scent of earth and growing things, and somewhere in the dark, I could almost hear my grandfather's voice. Sometimes the best way forward is to remember where you came from. Our 5 acres had grown into something beyond measure, not in size, but in impact. And that was worth more than all the luxury developments in the world. The end.